A private jet looks like the simplest status symbol in the world. Buy an airplane, hire a crew, skip airport security, land closer to your destination, fly whenever you want. That sounds perfectly logical. But the moment you look at the economics, the airplane almost stops being the interesting part. Because owning a private jet isn't really about buying transportation. It's about buying certainty. And certainty turns out to be one of the most expensive products ever created. Once you understand that, something surprising happens. The question stops being, can someone afford a private jet? Instead, it becomes, how much is unpredictability actually costing them? That difference explains why some billionaires happily spend tens of millions on aircraft, while other equally wealthy people never buy one. It also explains why thousands of private jets spend most of their lives sitting perfectly still. The economics of private aviation are much stranger than they appear. Most people think the biggest expense is buying the airplane. It certainly isn't cheap. A brand new light business jet might cost around $5 million to $10 million. Move into mid-size aircraft, and prices commonly reach $15 million to $30 million. Large intercontinental jets from manufacturers like Gulfstream or Bombardier can easily exceed $70 million, with some customized aircraft costing even more. Those numbers are staggering. But oddly enough, writing the purchase check is only the beginning of the financial story. Because unlike buying a luxury home, an airplane immediately starts generating costs whether you use it or not. The aircraft needs pilots. It needs insurance. It needs hangar space. It requires scheduled maintenance based on calendar time, not just flight hours. Software subscriptions must stay active. Navigation databases require updates. Parts age. Regulators require inspections. Engines accumulate limits. Even parked, the airplane behaves like an expensive business that's permanently open. The meter never stops. That leads to the first counterintuitive insight. Owning a private jet is less like owning a luxury car, and much more like owning a small airline with only one customer. Think about everything an airline needs. Pilots, maintenance technicians, dispatch planning, fuel contracts, compliance paperwork. It's pratingly like this is fine. Safety management, aircraft tracking, replacement parts. Now remove thousands of paying passengers. All of those systems still exist. They're simply supporting one aircraft instead of hundreds. That changes the economics dramatically. Here's where utilization becomes everything. Suppose two identical aircraft each cost $30 million. One flies 800 hours per year. The other flies only 120. Their fixed cost remains surprisingly similar. The pilots still need annual simulator training. Insurance barely changes. Hangar rent continues every month. Maintenance schedules continue. But now, divide those annual costs by flight hours. The airplane flying 800 hours spreads those expenses across far more trips. The lightly used jet doesn't. Its effective cost per flight hour can become dramatically higher. Ironically, buying a private jet and hardly using it can be one of the least efficient ways to own one. The airplane may look valuable. Economically, it's quietly becoming an underused asset. But there's another twist. Flying more isn't always better either. Every hour flown moves expensive components closer to overhaul. Jet engines are engineering marvels. They're also extraordinarily expensive machines to maintain. Major inspections and overhauls can cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars depending on the engine and aircraft. Many operators prepare for this years in advance through maintenance reserve programs, essentially setting aside money every flight hour for future repairs. It's similar to saving for a new roof the moment you buy a house. Ignore it, and eventually the bill arrives all at once. The aircraft might still look flawless from the outside. Financially, however, a maintenance event may already be approaching. Then comes depreciation. People often assume private jets behave like collectible assets. Most don't. Like many high-value machines, aircraft usually lose value over time. The exact rate depends on market conditions, model popularity, engine programs, and global demand. Certain periods, such as supply shortages during the COVID-era recovery, temporarily pushed used jet prices unusually high. But those conditions were exceptional rather than normal. Most owners should expect depreciation to be part of the total ownership cost. And depreciation is particularly painful because it's invisible. No invoice arrives. No mechanic sends a bill. The airplane simply becomes worth less. Year after year. This creates an interesting contradiction. People often think wealthy individuals buy private jets because money is no object. In reality, many of the largest private jet operators obsess over cost. Fuel efficiency matters. Route planning matters. Engine programs matter. Crew scheduling matters. Resale value matters. Because even billionaires understand opportunity cost. Every dollar tied up inside an aircraft is a dollar that could have been invested somewhere else. The truly expensive part isn't spending money. It's locking capital into an asset that may not produce financial returns, unless the aircraft itself helps create those returns. And that's where the story changes. One of the best examples comes from Warren Buffett. For years, Buffett publicly criticized corporate aircraft. He even jokingly referred to private jets as the Indefensible. From a purely financial perspective, they often appear difficult to justify. Then Berkshire Hathaway acquired NetJets in 1998. At first glance, that seems contradictory. Why would someone skeptical of private aircraft buy the world's largest fractional ownership company? Because Buffett wasn't buying airplanes. He was buying a business built around solving an economic problem. NetJets dramatically changed private aviation by allowing customers to purchase only a fraction of an aircraft instead of owning the entire machine. Instead of one owner paying for an airplane that sat idle most of the year, multiple owners shared access. Pilots, maintenance, scheduling, insurance, administration. All those expensive fixed costs became distributed across many customers. Suddenly, utilization increased. Idle time decreased. The economics improved. The airplane hadn't changed. The ownership model had. That's a powerful lesson. Sometimes innovation isn't building a better product. It's finding a better way to pay for it. But even perfect scheduling can't eliminate the industry's biggest enemy, downtime. Let's say an executive has meetings scheduled across 3 cities in one day. The aircraft develops an unexpected maintenance issue before departure. Safety regulations don't allow compromise. The airplane stays grounded. Immediately, replacement aircraft must be found. Commercial flights may no longer fit the schedule. Meetings are delayed. Deals may slip. Employees wait. Hotels change. Ground transportation changes. Entire calendars move. One mechanical problem becomes dozens of business problems. Notice the chain reaction. Mechanical issue. Operational disruption. Scheduling failure. Lost productivity. Financial consequences. The repair bill may not even be the largest cost. The opportunity cost often is. That's why reliability is one of the industry's most valuable products. This explains why many companies continue buying private aircraft despite the enormous expense. From the outside, it looks extravagant. Inside the business, the calculation can be completely different. Imagine a CEO visiting 4 factories across 3 states in a single day. Commercial airlines may require overnight stays, connecting flights, or routes that simply don't exist. The executive loses time. Senior employees travel separately. Projects slow down. Decisions wait. If dozens of highly compensated employees repeatedly lose productive hours, those hidden costs accumulate surprisingly quickly. For some organizations, the aircraft becomes less of a luxury and more of an expensive productivity tool. That doesn't automatically make ownership economical, but it changes the equation. The airplane is no longer competing against airline tickets. It's competing against lost executive time. Even then, outright ownership isn't always the answer. Today's market offers multiple alternatives. Charter companies allow businesses to pay only when they fly. Jet cards provide prepaid access without full ownership. Fractional ownership spreads fixed costs across multiple users. Membership platforms connect travelers with existing aircraft fleets. These models exist because the industry gradually recognized something important. Most customers don't actually need an airplane. They need guaranteed access to one. Those are very different products. One sells hardware. The other sells availability. And perhaps that's the biggest misconception of all. People think private aviation is fundamentally an aviation business. Economically, it behaves much more like a time business. Every decision ultimately revolves around time. Time saved. And time guaranteed. Time recovered. Time protected from uncertainty. If commercial airlines could perfectly match every customer's schedule, eliminate delays, remove security lines, and land exactly where executives needed to go, much of the value proposition behind private aviation would disappear. But they can't. That's the gap private aviation fills. At an extraordinary price. So does owning a private jet actually make financial sense? Sometimes. If the aircraft enables deals that otherwise wouldn't happen, reduces critical travel time, reaches destinations commercial airlines cannot serve efficiently, or supports operations where flexibility creates measurable business value, ownership can be justified. For many individuals, however, chartering or fractional ownership provides similar benefits with substantially lower financial commitment. And for others, commercial aviation remains overwhelmingly the most economical choice. That's why the answer isn't determined by wealth alone. It's determined by usage. We began with the image of a private jet as the ultimate luxury purchase. But that's only the surface. Beneath it lies a system of fixed costs, utilization rates, depreciation, maintenance planning, financing, scheduling, and opportunity cost. The airplane itself isn't the economic mystery. The real question is whether the value of certainty exceeds the enormous cost of creating it. Because, in the end, a private jet isn't simply an expensive way to fly. It's one of the world's most expensive ways to buy time.